Howdy folks, Dave here at Thunder Mesa Studio with an update on the On30 Thunder Mesa Mining Company layout. If you've been following along, you know that I've been getting back to work on the layout in recent months, and I've just added this new section which reconnects the old layout to the Goldfield and Calico and adds a Y for turning trains and improved operations. So this week I want to let you in on some future plans for the railroad and give an overall view of how everything fits in here in the studio. And as far as the Thunder Mesa layout goes, this is the area of expansion I'm talking about. This roughly 4 by 6 foot space where I'm going to need to build some new bench work and figure out a way to connect this track coming out of Rainbow Caverns with this one back here coming from Thunder Mesa in order to complete the main loop. And that's basically the puzzle I've been trying to solve since first moving the layout here to the new studio. And I've gone through a lot of iterations, but who's counting? Fortunately, I really enjoy drawing these track plans and layout maps, and each one builds on what was learned from the last one. So even if they don't actually get built, I always feel like it's time well spent. And by the way, if you want to see all of the past and current track plans for the Thunder Mesa layout, you can find them on my website in reverse chronological order. Just go to thundermesa.studio and click on the Model Railroads tab and scroll down to the track plans. Which brings us to the latest plan and the one that's actually being built. I am often asked what software I use to draw my track plans with, and the truth is, it's mostly about the hardware. I still prefer to hand draw my track plans on blue line grid paper at a scale of 1/8 of an inch equals 1 inch. If you can find some 8 by 8 grid paper like this with 1/8 of an inch squares within a 1 inch grid, it makes things much, much easier. Rulers and French curves and compasses are used to draw in the track center lines, and I take very careful measurements of turnouts and other components to make sure that everything will fit the way I want it to. Of course, there is some great model railroad track planning software out there that you can use, like the stuff from Third Planet. But for me, coming from a background in illustration and graphic design, I still prefer the warmth and the individuality that you get from the hand-drawn line. Once the drawing is finished, I'll scan it in at scale at 300 dpi. It's important to scan it at scale in like a flatbed scanner rather than, just taking a digital photo of it from above. A photo can distort the image, and you want it to be, at scale and undistorted. So, if you're going to do this and you don't have a flatbed scanner, just take it to Kinko's or Staples or someplace like that and have them scan it for you at scale at 300 dpi. And then once I have a digital version of the drawing, I'll open it up in a graphic arts program like Adobe Photoshop or Affinity Photo 2. And that's where the colors and the shading and the text and all the graphics get added. It's kind of beyond the scope of this channel to do an exhaustive tutorial on Adobe Photoshop. But, there are a lot of good ones out there on YouTube. And I did cover a lot of the design process in a previous video. And even though the plan has changed yet again, the design process has not. And with all of that in mind, let's take a look at the plan I've come up with as it stands today. As you can see, the layout has evolved into something of a T shape with an overall footprint of about 8 by 14 feet. One of the main changes I wanted to make from the old layout was wider aisles with more room for full-size humans. So I've traded a little bit of model railroad real estate for improved access and operator comfort. The original 3 by 6 Thunder Mesa layout still makes up the core of the railroad and sets the standards for all of the rest. This is a modest layout that's designed to look bigger than it really is, with the main focus being on scenery and structures. Small locomotives and short trains have always been the rule on Thunder Mesa, and that allows me to get away with a tight minimum radius of just 15 inches. That tight minimum allows for more room for scenery and people in a relatively small space, and though it prevents me from running anything bigger than a 440, it's still a choice I'm happy with. I use Pico On30 flex track and turnouts throughout the Thunder Mesa and the Goldfield and Calico layouts. And those turnouts only come in one size. They're roughly number 5s. So that keeps things pretty simple. And speaking of simple, once again there are no grades to speak of on the layout. And gone are the switchbacks from earlier versions of the plan. Those take up a lot of space, and while they might be fun to operate for a while, I decided I didn't want the headaches that grades can cause. I might do something with switchbacks on a future layout, but again, the main focus on Thunder Mesa is scenery and structures, with small trains running through it all. The plan is essentially a lazy L-shaped loop with the new Y at Thunder Mesa adding a ton of new operational possibilities. I've always wanted a Y on the layout and finally figured out a way to make it work. It allows for turning locomotives or entire trains and creates a natural connection to the Goldfield and Calico layout just across the aisle. There's also a small engine house in this section, along with the docks and wharves of Fowler's Landing on the Rio Frontera, where steam-powered riverboats like the Canyon Queen still come to call. Scenery-wise, this section is now home to the structures from Rainbow Ridge, which is now an extension of Thunder Mesa Town. And the old Atencio Crump and Gracie Undertaker shop has a special place in the corner above Boot Hill, which should make for a nice transition to Calico Mountain just beyond. South of the Y, we come into the heart of Thunder Mesa, with its Disneyland-inspired structures huddled close to the tracks. The original 3x6 foot layout section has been expanded to 4x8 feet, and in the not-too-distant future, spooky Ravenswood Manor from Disneyland Paris will rise atop the mesa, high above town, making for a dramatic focal point. Continuing on down the line, not much has changed beyond the depot. We cross Big Thunder Creek and head into the cactus forest, before passing through McKinnon Arch, gateway to nature's wonderland. All the while, the red sandstone spires of Baxter's Butte rise high above. Rounding the bend, we cross Geyser Gulch Trestle, where Old Unfaithful still erupts from time to time. And then we pass below Ambush Rock to see the bleached bones of an ancient creature in Dinosaur Gap just off to the right. A tunnel takes us into the colorful depths of Rainbow Caverns, first discovered when a shaft sunk from Big Thunder Mine broke into the main chamber many years ago. Waterfalls and underground rivers flow on every side, while giant crystals reflect all the colors of the rainbow. Exiting Rainbow Caverns, we come to the next section of the layout to be built. This will be the canyon section, roughly 4x6 feet, but with dramatic scenery extending down 100 scale feet below track level. We rumble across Coyote Canyon High Bridge, an iron trestle on spindly legs, built in the best narrow gauge tradition. And a moment or two later, we're passing through the main Thunder Mesa ore mill. Here, an 18-inch gauge mining tram keeps the mill well supplied with raw ore from the rich diggings around Big Thunder Camp. The ore is processed at the mill to be bagged and shipped out in boxcars on the Thunder Mesa main line. The ON18 mining tram is a very simple out-and-back line, which will likely be fully automated. A single locomotive will push a string of ore cars from Nevermind Tunnel and Big Thunder Camp across the natural arch bridge over Coyote Canyon and onto the ore dump trestle at the mill. There it will pause for a few minutes before reversing and doing it all again. Hopefully this will add a lot of kinetic energy to the scene without overcomplicating things. ON18 is a fun scale gauge combination to model in, but here it exists simply to support and embellish the story of Thunder Mesa. Just past the mill is the flag stop of Bullwhip Junction. This is a new addition to the layout, and the track going off at lower left allows for the possibility of future expansion. Stay tuned for that. Keeping to the main line, we cross a wooden trestle over narrow Horse Thief Canyon and enter the Devil's Garden with its many hoodoos, arches, and balancing rocks. And yes, those rocks will be animated. Down in the canyon are some ancient Anasazi cliff dwellings, now abandoned. While on the mesa high above, modern-day Pueblo peoples are holding a rain ceremony, maybe leading to that thunderstorm rumbling in the clouds nearby. Better keep a lookout for flash floods. Our train then crosses a wooden deck bridge over the narrow end of Coyote Canyon before plunging into the tunnel below Thunderbird Butte. Emerging from the darkness, we pass through a peak tunnel portal before arriving right back where we started at the Thunder Mesa Y. Here, we can turn the train and go back the way we came, or even continue on to Calico from the new connection at Calico Junction. Most likely, though, our train will just continue on to Thunder Mesa Depot and make the whole Grand Circle tour again. So that's the plan for the Thunder Mesa Mining Company layout. The next steps will be to complete the backdrop on this wall behind me and then build the benchwork for the new canyon section. And for that backdrop, I have something special planned. This time, the distant buttes and mesas and mountains will be painted onto 1/8 inch masonite panels and then cut out. And then I want to install those panels, leaving about 3/4 of an inch between them and the painted blue sky backdrop on the wall. And that should allow just enough room for some RGB LED strip lighting to give different lighting effects depending on the time of day. And I think the sunset effect will be especially spectacular. The old thunderstorm effect will also be returning, along with the digital projectors for the full moon and the fireworks that were so popular on the old layout. Those will likely be a part of the lighting rig, which will be suspended from the ceiling. So there's a lot to do. Plenty of projects to keep me busy for a long time to come. But that's just the Thunder Mesa layout. Now let's take a look at how this fits in with everything else here in the studio. The studio train room is approximately 300 square feet, about 15 by 20. And then the front model shop / office adds another 150 square feet. And that's where the 2x4 foot San Lorenzo mini layout is located. Here, along the west wall of the train room, you can see how the Thunder Mesa layout and the Goldfield and Calico fit together. They can operate as 2 independent loops for display, or as one railroad system if more operations are desired. The aisles here are a comfy 4 feet wide, allowing plenty of room for 1/1 scale humans. And that's a welcome change from the old studio where things could get a little cramped on open studio days. Back behind the Goldfield and Calico along the north wall is an access and storage area, backstage if you will. And this area can act as staging for both the Goldfield and Calico and the Thunder Mesa line. And over on the east wall is the Tiki Bar. Hey, you know, every train room needs a Tiki Bar, right? In reality, it's not much of a functioning bar, but there is a mini fridge with cold beverages. This area is still under development, and in the end, the bar might just make an awesome base for a tropical-themed mini layout. There's nothing concrete in the plans yet, but you know, it could happen. Just to the right, we enter Little Colorado and the 4x8 foot HON3 Barlow Pass layout. This layout is still in the plywood stage and track laying has just begun. I'd like to get the backdrops painted and installed sooner rather than later because I've been yearning for those dramatic Rocky Mountain vistas. Of course, you can see all the progress on the Barlow Pass by subscribing and checking out the playlist. The south wall of the train room is dominated by a roll-up shop door. Now, this is great when you want to move big stuff in or out, but can be problematic for trains and models the rest of the time. I'm making the best of things with a couple of backdrop panels that cover much of the door when in place, but can be moved when I need to use it. And that brings us to the current mini layout project, the ON18 Thunderbird Trading Post with its mid-1950s Route 66 theme. This is in a flexible space, and the layout won't be here forever, so it is also a possible area for future Thunder Mesa expansion. But for now, I'm having a blast working on Thunderbird with my pal Gary Beatty, and we're planning to have the whole thing done by this coming spring. Again, you can follow the build progress right here on the channel, and there's another installment coming next week. So that is how everything fits here in the studio with just enough room left over for humans. And speaking of humans, I'm planning to host Open Studio Days again at some time in the future. But I want to wait until all the track is in and the trains are running again on the Thunder Mesa layout. These Open Studio Days will probably happen quarterly, so stay tuned for more information on all of that. For now, that's a wrap on this Thunder Mesa planning session. Thank you so much for watching today and following along with all of the projects as they continue to evolve here at the studio. I'll be back next week with another video. And until then, you can also follow for free over on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Thunder Mesa. If you'd like to support the content on this channel, you can become a paid member there. You can also follow on Instagram at thunder.mesa and check out the resources available on the Thunder Mesa Studio website at thundermesa.studio. As always, a big thank you to our Patreon members who help to make these projects and these videos possible. Until next time, keep moving forward, everybody. Adios for now.